have your block nearby. And just lie down with the feet on the mat, knees bent, focusing on that triple S. Now feeling like we normally do that triple S, notice what your front ribs are doing. If you're having a hard time getting the shoulder blades down, a lot of the times it's because we're popping our ribs up and that arches the upper back. So you can always place the hand on those front ribs and just kind of hold them down. Let's keep the hands on the low ribs, or just right on those front ribs actually, and push down into the feet, lifting up into low bridge. Now notice the tendency of your ribs here. Did they kind of move up into the hands? Did you need to hold the hands a little bit more firm? So we want to keep those front ribs down so that we can expand into the back ribs. And just breathing into the ribs here, holding our bridge, strong in the glutes, strong in the legs. Imagine that you could breathe right in between the shoulder blades. So getting that back body expansion. Let's stretch out the wrist as we hold bridge, right palm up, pull back. Tailbone is lengthening toward the heels, back of the neck is long. See if you can breathe into the side ribs. Switch hands. Stretch out that left wrist. Keep feeling those back ribs and shoulder blades on the ground. Release your hands. Let's lower down one vertebra at a time. Rechecking that triple S. Hands are going to come behind the head. Draw the elbows in. So our normal core work, take a big breath in. Feel that side-to-side expansion. Exhale, lift up off the shoulder blades. Elbows are in nice and tight toward the forehead. Now notice what the front ribs are doing here. Try to pull them in. Pull the belly button down. Inhale to lower. Exhale, lift up off your shoulder blades. Draw those pelvic points in. Now turn 1 inch to the right. Left hand comes to the right side of the ribs. Drag those ribs in and down a little bit. So in toward center and then holding them down so they don't thrust. Hand comes back behind the head as you come to center. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift up. Lean your head back. Turn 1 inch to the left, staying off that left shoulder blade. Right hand comes over to the left ribs. Drag them in towards center and then down toward the pelvis a little bit. Hand behind the head, back to center. Inhale and lower. Adding on a little more. Exhale, lift up. Pull the belly down. Rotate 1 inch to the right. Stay off that right shoulder blade. Left hand crosses over. Drag the ribs in and down toward the pelvis like you're feeling a diagonal line from that right rib to left pelvic point, really getting those obliques kicking on. Hand behind the head. Inhale, center. Exhale, lift up. Hold your sacrum down. Rotate 1 inch to the left. Right hand comes to the left ribs. Pull in toward center and a little bit down toward the pelvis, drawing a diagonal line from that left rib to right pelvic point. Hand behind the head. Inhale to lower. Exhale, lift up. We're going to add one more thing. Lean the head back. Turn 1 inch to the right, staying off that right shoulder blade. Left hand to the right ribs. Drag in and down. Now pick up that right foot. Hold the sacrum down. Right foot lowers, left hand behind the head. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift up. Lean your head back into your hands. Pull the belly down. Turn 1 inch to the left, staying off that left shoulder blade. Right arm comes across. Drag the ribs in and down. Hold the low back down. Let's try to pick up that left foot. Left foot lowers, hand behind the head. Inhale, lower. Let's release it. Coming into quadruped. From quadruped, let's check that stack here. So our triple S, like we have a broom behind the back. Lift those front ribs up a little bit so they're not drooping down. Now hold your triple S. All we're gonna do is step the right foot back for plank, step the left foot back for plank. So now we're in plank. Keep lifting those ribs. Slide the right knee in and the left knee in. We're back in quadruped. Let's step the left foot back first this time. Lift the ribs. Step the right foot back. We're in plank. Hold everything still. Slide the left knee in. Slide the right knee in. Good. Cat-cow a couple times. Stretching out the back. Getting the spine moving. Coming back to that expansive inhale. From quadruped, we're just going to walk right up to the front of the mat so that we can start our sun salutation one. So standing, let's check that stack. So yes, of course, we want ears over the shoulders, but let's make sure the ribs are stacking right over the pelvis. So if we're tipping the pelvis and arching the back, we've lost that stack. And if we're rounding the back, we've lost that stack. So ribs right on top. Arms lift forward and up. Lift the shoulder blades. Now keep the front ribs in, not thrusting. As you hinge forward, don't let those ribs droop down toward the ground. Right foot will step back. We're heading into a low lunge. So you can lower the knee. Let's keep the toes tucked or untucked, your choice. Coming to our low lunge. Check your stack. Ribs over the pelvis. Firm that right glute. Let's roll the shoulders back. Freeing up some of that tissue in the neck and the upper back. Hands come down. Quadruped. Tuck the toes. Let's head to a down dog. Take a breath here. Now lift the ribs up here in your down dog. Don't let them droop down toward the ground. On an exhale, lower the knees to quadruped. Now our right foot will step forward. We're in low lunge on the other side. So left knee is down. Tighten that left glute. Toes can be tucked or untucked. Let's roll the shoulders. Check that expansive inhale all the way around the ribs. Hands come forward. You can always bring them to blocks as we step the left foot forward to meet the right. Bent knee forward fold. Push down into the feet. Let's reach those arms forward and up. Lift the shoulder blades. Keep the ribs right on top of the pelvis. Keep pulling the ribs in toward the body as you hinge forward, so not letting the back arch here. Left foot steps back. Low lunge. Lower the knee, but not the toes. So we're coming into that tucked low lunge. Tighten the left glute. This time, hands behind the head. You can open the elbows out as wide as it feels good without arching the back or popping those ribs. So remember that feeling of hands just guiding in and down. Let's tighten the left glute as we rotate to the right and back to center. So we're just going to rotate a couple times, holding those ribs in. So not letting them thrust or pop forward. Hands come down, quadruped for a moment on our way to downward dog. When you're ready, tuck the toes, lift up, down dog, lift the ribs too. Lift the armpits. Breathe into the back and side ribs. Exhale on your way to quadruped. Left foot steps forward. Low lunge. So now our right knee is down. Let's tighten that right glute. Ribs right over the pelvis. Hands behind the head. Chin is slightly toward the throat. Open the elbows as wide as it feels good. Rotate left. Back to center. So we're rotating toward the front leg. We're just turning in the chest and the ribs. Not letting those ribs pop forward. So keep that stack right over the pelvis. Hands come forward or to blocks. Right foot steps forward, bent knee forward fold. Push down into the feet. Arms reach forward and up. Lift those shoulder blades. Starting our first sequence, exhale, hinge. We'll start the same way in a low lunge. Right foot steps back. Lower the knee, not the toes. Coming into our 90-90 lunge. Let's firm the right glute. Check that the ribs are on the pelvis. Now we'll rotate with our fists together. So hold those ribs in. Don't let them pop forward. Rotate left, tighten the right glute, unwind. Rotate left, draw those pelvic points in, back to center. Rotate left, tailbone reaches down, back to center. One more time, rotate left, bring it back to center. Right hand can come to the ground or to a block. We'll take a modified twisted crescent. So right shoulder over the wrist, left hip moves back, left arm out to the side. Let's turn the chest to the left, but hold those ribs in and down, just like we did in our core work. Let the right ear release to the shoulder. So don't think about reaching this left arm really far back behind you. Just think about lifting straight up. So getting more reach in the arm as opposed to trying to twist further. Heading to a modified side plank. If your right hand is on the block, you're welcome to keep it there as we slide the right knee in. Left foot steps straight toward the back of the mat. Drag that right shoulder blade down the back. Now maybe left hand to the ribs here. Can we check to make sure that those ribs are in and slightly pulling down toward the pelvis? Now you can keep your hand there, or you can float that left arm up. Holding strong and anchored into that right shoulder. Right hand comes back to the right hip. Let's take the left foot, step it forward toward the front of the mat. We're gonna lift and turn to the side of the mat for some side lunges. Let's bring our hands to the ribs here. So hold those ribs in toward the body as you side lunge. Notice if the tendency is to really want to droop those ribs down toward the ground as we side lunge. So we have to work against gravity here. So hold those ribs in. If we let those spill here, the whole upper back's going to go with it. So again, that stack of ribs over the pelvis is going to keep that core working more efficiently. So let's give it all the help we can, keeping that stack. Good. Stand up and turn back to the front of the mat. We'll do this sequence on the second side. So check that stack, ribs over pelvis, arms forward and up, lift the rib cage up. Exhale, hinge without letting those ribs spill toward the ground. Left foot steps back into our low lunge. Tuck the toes, lift up. Picture that stack, ears over the shoulders, shoulders over the ribs, ribs over the pelvis. Tighten that left glute, knuckles together. Rotate right and center. So we're only going to go to the right toward that front leg. Keep that left glute firm. Keep those ribs in. Think about lifting through the crown of the head as you draw the chin slightly down toward the throat. So really lengthening the back of the neck. Heading to that modified twisted crescent. Left hand can come straight to the ground or it can come to a block. Let's make sure shoulders over the wrist. Right arm up. Rotate the chest to the right. Let the left ear release to the shoulder. Now check that left shoulder blade. Imagine trying to drag that shoulder blade down the back. Pull those ribs in. Breathe right in between the shoulder blades. Modified side plank. If that left hand's on the block, you're welcome to keep it there as you slide the left knee in. Right foot steps back. Now again, left shoulder blade drags down the back. Anchor down into that left arm. Hand to the ribs. Pull those ribs in and down toward the pelvis, keeping that stack. Maybe right arm comes up if that feels good. Tailbones reaching toward the back of the mat. Right hand to the hip. Step it forward toward the front of the mat as we lift off that left knee. We'll continue to turn to the left to the side of the mat. Hands to the ribs, side lunges. Keep those ribs lifting up. So right now we want our ribs lifting up and away from the ground because we're trying to work against gravity. So really keep that stack. Notice what's happening at the chin and the neck. Think about lengthening the back of the neck, growing taller from the tailbone through the crown of the head. Let's rise up, step it forward toward the front of the mat. One round of sun salutation A, recheck the stack, ribs over the pelvis. Arms forward and up, shoulder blades lift, fingertips lift. Now don't let those ribs droop down as you hinge at the hips, bent knee forward fold. Let's step it to a plank pose. Now just like we practiced in our reset, that quadruped to plank, lift the ribs away from the ground here. Lift the front of the throat. Find that neutral scapula, neutral pelvis. Lower the knees without changing that stack. So check what the ribs are doing. Exhale, lower down. Keep the top of the shoulders lifted. Drag the hands back, low cobra. Lift the belly, lift the ribs here. Tuck the toes, heading to downward dog. We'll take a couple breaths here. You're welcome to pedal out the feet if that feels good, or just hold and breathe. But let's lift those ribs up here. Don't let them fall down to the ground. So the more we keep that stack of our ribs in down dog, the more our core is going to work, the more we can get that diaphragm to breathe that big 360 breath. Let's walk it forward into our bent knee forward fold. Big bend in your knees so that you can lengthen the spine, lift those ribs here. Rise up. We'll start our second sequence. Hinge at the hips. We're not going to come all the way down. Hands come to the thighs. So we're kind of just in this chair pose, hinge. Lift those ribs here. So if we droop them down, we're going to arch the back. So let's keep that stack. Tailbone is long. Slide the right toes back without changing anything. Doesn't matter how far they go. And then back to that chair pose. Slide the left toes back. Back to chair. So you're just going to alternate one leg back, but the goal is to not let the chest and the ribs move. Keeping that triple S. So if you'd rather have hands lifting the ribs up, that's fine too. Or you can have them on the thighs. Lengthen the back of the neck. The next time we step that right foot back or tap that right foot back, let's pause. Soften that right knee. Lift up into a high lunge. Hands to the heart. Check that stack. Ribs right over the pelvis. Keep that stack as you rotate maybe an inch or two to the left. Prayer twist. Tailbone down, right glute firm. Now maybe we hinge a little bit further forward, but keep those ribs in. Don't let the ribs go toward the thigh. Keep them lifted away. Good, lift back up. Let's turn to the right. So we're facing the side of the mat, hands behind the head. Now, we've done this a bunch of times. Nothing's different. We're just focusing on the ribs. So you're just going to pick up one foot, flex the other hip, and then step that foot to the side, flex the other hip. So we're just alternating, stepping one foot out, flexing, stepping the other foot out, and flexing. If you feel like there's a lot of movement happening through the chest and the ribs, you can always bring the hands back there. If hands behind the head is not the best option. So it doesn't matter how high we lift the leg, can we move the hips independently without involving the rib cage? So can we keep that stack as we start to move our limbs in bigger ways? Checking with your breath. Good, we're heading to a bent knee airplane. So as we turn to the front, our left foot is forward. Hands come to the front ribs. So kind of like that high lunge we were just in. Keep the hands on the ribs, keep them lifted as we tilt forward. You are welcome to stay here with the right foot on the ground or shift more weight into that left foot. Maybe we float that right leg up, bend knee airplane. Really hold those ribs in, like we're trying to hold our guts in. Keeping that stack, spine is long. Good, step that right foot forward, rise to stand, second side, reach those arms up. Hands to the thighs, come to that hip hinge. So we're sitting the hips back, we're keeping the ribs lifted. Chin toward the throat, left foot taps back without changing anything. And then back into that chair. right foot taps back. So you're gonna keep going, alternating right and left. So the goal again, can we keep that stack? Can we keep our triple S as we move the legs? So it's that really integrated core when we have, it's called our core canister, everything from your ribs to your pelvic floor. So we want to keep that all working together so that our breath and our core is more efficient. The next time we have that left leg back, we're going to pause. Soften that left knee as you lift up into your high lunge. Hands to prayer, hands at the heart. Now turn the chest to the right without letting the pelvis turn with it. Maybe we tilt forward a little bit more. Keep lifting the ribs up. Don't let them pop, arching the back, so we can get more space in the mid-back when we have that stack. So if you tend to feel tight there or a little stiff in the back ribs, this is going to help. Good, lift up, let's turn to the left. We're facing the side of the mat, hands behind the head. Pick up that right foot, flexing the right hip. Step the right foot out to the side, flex the left hip. So just alternating, facing the side of the mat, keeping that stack. So we're moving the skull back into the hands, lengthening the back of the neck with the chin slightly down toward the throat. So we've got everything working together. We've got that neutral spine as we pick up one foot at a time. Let's step it to the front of the mat. Third sequence, we're going to start in a warrior two. So our right foot will step back, warrior two. Adjust here, tailbone down, ribs on top of the pelvis. So as we hold warrior two, we're going to bring the knuckles together and do what we did in low lunge. So hold the pelvis still. This time we rotate both ways toward the front leg and the back leg. But can we turn the ribs without turning the pelvis? So this is going to help free up some tissue that connects the ribs and the pelvis. If that's tight, we don't have as good of thoracic mobility as we could. So the stack also helps us to just have better thoracic mobility in general. Good, stay in your warrior two, arms out. One time, let's reverse it. Just think of a side bend, opening up the left side of the ribs. Warrior two. Variation, as you lift the left side of the ribs away from that left thigh, let's breathe into the right side of the ribs. Circle or backstroke this right arm as you come to the ground, plank pose. We'll lower our knees right away in plank, lift the ribs, lift the front of the throat. Just 3 tiny push-ups, bend the elbows back any amount without dropping those shoulders forward, straighten. Firm the glutes, tiny bend of the elbows, push into the hands, straighten. One more time, tiny bend, straighten. This time we'll lower all the way down. Keep the top of the shoulders lifted, wide fingertip cobra, come onto your fingertips. Lift the belly, squeeze those shoulder blades in toward the spine, then try to pull the shoulder blades down the back. Lift from the front of the throat. So we're opening the chest, the front of the shoulders, getting that thoracic extension. Hands come back under the shoulders. Let's head to a down dog. Lift the hips up, lift the ribs up. So check for any drooping in the ribs here. Maybe we pedal the feet out. If that feels good, you don't have to. Keep pressing into the fingers, lifting the armpits. Walk it forward into our bent knee forward fold. Big bend in the knees, lengthen the spine, lift the ribs as you push into the feet, rise up. Lower the hands, second side, left foot steps back, heading into that warrior two. Pelvic bowl is upright, ribs right on top, fists together. Let's rotate both ways, maybe just an inch or two right, an inch or two left. So we're rotating toward the front leg and the back leg, but we're trying not to turn the pelvis or the hips. So this is pulling on some of that tissue front and back of the body that connects the pelvis to the ribs. Getting a little bit more movement in the tissues. And then arms out as we hold our warrior two, nice and stable. Reverse it, opening up into the right side of the ribs. Warrior two. Variation, opening up into the left side of the ribs and the area between the left side of the ribs and pelvis. Backstroke this left arm, heading to plank. Plant the hands. Once we get to plank, we're going to lower the knees. Lift the throat, check the shoulder blades, check the pelvis. Tiny push-ups, elbows bend back without the shoulders dropping forward. Straighten, lift the throat. Elbows bend back. Straighten, keep lifting the ribs. Elbows bend back. Straighten this time, lower all the way down. Pelvis comes down, wide fingertip cobra. Shoulder blades in and down. Lift the belly, lift the throat. Maybe we try to lift the ribs up here. Release it, hands under the shoulders, downward dog. Check in with your breath. Lift the ribs. Let's walk it forward, bent knee, forward fold. Hold those ribs in place here. Push down into the feet and rise up. We're gonna get as much as we can through the stream. Let's release the hands. Step your right foot back into a high lunge this time. So instead of low lunge, we're gonna start the stream in a high lunge. Ribs right over the pelvis. Knuckles together. So you've done this before. Rotate left. Back to center. Rotate left. Back to center. Keep going, drawing those pelvic points in. So our rib cage is moving on top of our very still pelvis. Hands to the heart. Rotate left. Maybe we tilt it forward. Lift the ribs up. Don't let them droop down. Lengthen tailbone to crown of the head. Step your right foot next to the left for that chair pose hinge. This time as we tap the toes back, it's going to go at a diagonal. So left toes tap over to the right, back into your chair, right toes tap to the left, and back to chair. So we're just adding that extra challenge of moving diagonally. You're going to want to turn the pelvis, but don't turn the pelvis. So keep that stack, ribs on top. So we're not turning the pelvis with it. We're just moving the leg at a diagonal, but we're not rotating down below. So it's going to be harder to keep that stack. Our brain has to work harder, and our core has to work harder. But let's turn to the right. Heading into a side lunge. Hands behind the head. We'll side lunge to the right. Rise up. Step that right foot next to the left. Pick up your left foot any amount, flexing the left hip. Step it down. Step your right foot out to the right. One side lunge to the right. Rise up. Step the right foot next to the left. Pick up the left foot. Let's do that one more time. Side lunge to the right. Rise up. Step it in. Pick up the left foot. Step it down. Now just turn it back to the front of the mat. Right leg back. We're heading into that bent knee airplane. Hands to the ribs. Tilt it forward. Long spine. Let's float the right leg off the ground, or you can stay here. From your bent knee airplane, our right foot is going to step down into a warrior two, facing the side of the mat again. One time, reverse it. Breathe into the left side of the ribs. Warrior two. Variation. Breathe into the right side of the ribs. Warrior two. Good. Step it forward. Second side. Arms up. Hinge forward just a touch. Left foot steps back. High lunge. Adjust here. Keep that pelvic bowl upright. Ribs right on top. Knuckles together. Firm that left glute as you rotate right, back to center. So we're just gonna go toward that front leg a couple more times. Our rib cage is moving right over the pelvis, but the pelvis isn't turning with it. Hands to prayer. Turn to the right, don't turn the pelvis. Now, as you tilt forward, keep lifting the ribs up and away from the ground so that we can create a little bit more space at the back ribs. Step that left foot next to the right. We're in that hinge chair pose. Now again, as we step the right foot back, it's going to go at a diagonal, so kind of crossing over. Left foot steps back at a diagonal toward the right. Now you can stay like this. You can have hands at the ribs. If you want to add even more challenge, as you step the left foot back, reach that left arm forward. As you step the right foot at a diagonal, reach that right arm forward. But that is much harder on the ribs. So if you're taking that option, really keep that feeling of the hands holding those ribs in place so that we don't turn them, we don't droop them, we can keep that stack. So we're really relying on the core. Pause with that left foot back. We'll turn to the side of the mat. Hands behind the head. Side lunge left. Rise up. Step the left foot next to the right. Flex the right hip. Pick up the foot. Step it down. Left foot steps out to the left. Side lunge. Step that left foot back in. Flex the right hip. Do that a couple more times. You can always have hands at the ribs. So our transitions are where we tend to lose that stack. So as we move from side lunge to that balance, can we keep the ribs right on top of the pelvis without popping them? Keep the neck neutral. Good, let's turn it back to the front, hands to the ribs, right foot is forward. We're heading into that bent knee airplane. Put a little bit more weight into that right foot. Maybe the left toes lift up. Lift the ribs up so that we can be broader in the back ribs. Left foot comes down for warrior two. Arms up. Reverse it. So we're side bending, creating more space in the intercostal muscles between the ribs. Warrior two. Variation. Left arm up and over. Create more space between the ribs on the left side. This time we'll head to a quadruped and cat-cow. So feel that space in the back here as you cat-cow. As you round the back, really feel that broadness across the shoulder blades, across the back ribs. Maybe we've got a little bit more space there after finding that stack. Let's come into a seated position of any kind. And of course, sit and try to stack the ribs right on top. Neutral neck, hands anywhere. And of course, have the hands on the ribs. Let's take 2 360 breaths. So breathing, expanding all around the rib cage as you inhale. One more. And then as you exhale, send one grateful thought out into the universe.